all just kind of put away on our bedroom bookshelves. And, just stuff like you might have on a coffee table that you could just kind of pick out and casually read, or, if there's any novels or anything. Alright, from the top of the shelf, we've got The Ultimate Book of Lighthouses, Nausicaa, The Valley of the Wind, part 1 of the manga. Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, A Christmas Carol, and Stardew Valley Guidebook. Now, most of these are not mine, so I don't really have too much to say about them. These are my partner's for the most part. She's the Stardew Valley player. But I can still flip through these a little bit just to show. I think this book is very aesthetic. I like the art. It's all just information about the game, which I don't really know much about, but I really like the vibe of it, and I like watching her play it. And I just like the layout of the book. It looks just the fonts of things are fun. It all has kind of like a little, almost like a sketchbook or handwriting type feel. Just these like drawn portraits of the characters. It's not even just using their pixel art from the game. So this kind of stuff, especially for somebody who like kind of knows about the game but not really any type of in-depth elements of it, it's kind of fun just to see all of these lists of things in here. Just because I don't know what's going on, I can just look through the guild managed by Marlin, who sells equipment, and it's got a list of all of the equipment in the guild, such as the bone sword, obsidian edge, lava katana, galaxy hammer, space boots, amethyst ring, master slingshot. Got the fishing shop, Willie's fish shop, list of items, various locations in the games, lists of stocks of stores, got character likes and dislikes. I always liked Krobus. I don't really know much about him. He's just a weird little shadow guy that lives in the sewers. There's just some more like written out type pages about growing relationships between the characters, how to prepare, what you'll need, 5,000 gold, 10 hearts, your first house upgrade. I'm glad we don't need that in real life, because I don't have a house. I don't have an unupgraded house, much less an upgraded one, so I think I might just be out of luck for life on that. You got nice art of the tool upgrades, the crops, farm animals. I just think it's like a really cute little book. It also seems very informative, although I am saying that as a outsider. I'm not actually using this to play the game. Fishing, all the fish, adventuring, enemies in the mines. We got a whole list of hats, such as a chicken mask, a cool cap. I don't know what makes it cool. It's just kind of a pale blue. Got a blue cowboy hat, which I would say is a cooler hat. We got Emily's magic hat, which seems even cooler. We got party hats, squire's helmets, trucker hats. So there's like it seems like a mix of pretty normal stuff and then some more like fantasy or some silly stuff. You got the good old cap and the governor's hat, which I I hope that this has been stolen from the governor. It's literally his hat. But, I don't know. We got a list of books, much like what I'm doing right now. We got the festivals, Witch's Lair, Ginger Islands info. That was a cool page. Mysterious Walnut Room. Christmas Carol, again, this is Miranda's book. I think she might have finished this, but it's a pretty short one. I think I've read this as a kid before, but maybe if I haven't read the actual book, I feel like pretty commonly known story. It's a lot of good. Or I don't know if there's a lot of good ones. There's a lot of movie adaptations. I really like the Muppets Christmas Carol. I try and watch that every Christmas. And I didn't this year, for some reason. And I thought maybe I should just try and watch it post-Christmas, sometime still in the winter. It's now the end of February. I still haven't watched it. It feels like it might be past the time. I think I might just feel a little bit sad if I watched it now. Two Towers, again, Miranda's book. I do like Lord of the Rings, but I have not read the books. And she's been reading through these. But enjoy the movies and just kind of the lore of it all. I've listened to some of these on audiobook with her when we were on road trips, which is very calming. I enjoy that. I don't know if I'm ever going to actually just try and read straight through these, but I think it is kind of fun just because I know, kind of the broader story from the movies, so it is kind of fun just to flip through and, see if it's a part I recognize, but not just seeing, what's really going on in the text. Nausicaa. I've seen the movie of this manga a couple times, which I think is good, but I wanted to get the manga, and of course I haven't read through it as is my custom with a lot of these. Haven't read through it, and there's a lot going on in the movie. It feels very fast-paced. There's a lot of just details crammed in, and I thought it would be cool because I like that story and just kind of like the art style and the design of the world. I think is cool. So it would be nice to read through the manga and just have everything be expanded a lot more that they didn't have time for in the movie. From what little I know about the manga version is that there's just a lot more details and kind of more explored elements of kind of like side characters and side plots and things like that. I actually don't know if they made the movie first and then expanded it in this manga or vice versa. But either way, I think this would be a good read. Usually I'm reading just more kind of like chill or ambient type stuff, more just like regular life, slice of life type stories. And I do like fantasy stuff, but a lot of times I'm just not in the mood for it, and I don't know, I kind of feel like I'm gonna have to just be in the mood to really get into this and read through it. So that's why I haven't really started, but just looking through, I like the art a lot. Yeah, I like the art of the movie, but just seeing it drawn is very cool. I really like the style of, I'm sure there's some artistic technique this is actually called, but just these sketchy pen lines. You know, there's just lots of lines that kind of show shading and things like that. Shading and details of things. I like that style. It feels, I mean, this is all very nicely done art, but it has that kind of like sketchbook style. Like, it almost seems like not that serious. It doesn't feel super polished, which I like. It just feels like somebody kind of just drew these out in their sketchbook or something like that. So I've got this is part one of the omnibus set, which I believe is just 2, and I might be wrong. I've got the other one on the other bookshelf. So again, another book on the easily accessible shelf that I still have not even started, but you know, I think I might get into this because I like just looking through it. Last one on the list is the book of the ultimate book, not just the book, ultimate book of lighthouses. We got history, legends, lore, design, technology, and romance for some reason. Now, this is so far the only book that I actually bought on here. I got this from a used bookstore that I actually used to work at, but I bought this before I worked there. And then I worked there for a little bit, and I hated it so much, and I quit as soon as I could, and I didn't go back there for 2 years, because I hated it so much. And I actually just went back there for the first time the other day, and I saw some people that I used to work with, and that felt kind of weird. I don't think anyone recognized me, so that's cool. Anyway, unrelated to that, that's where where the book came from before all of that. Yeah, and it was super cheap. I'm not, I would not say I am especially into lighthouses, but I was just flipping through this there, and this just felt like such a nice coffee table book. Just, you know, this seems like something that I would find in like my grandma's house or something, or you know, some family house or something. I'm just bopping around there and, you know, flipping through something on the table. I haven't looked at this too much. I was reading, you know, I'll just these kinds of things. I don't think I even really look at the table of contents. You know, they're all kind of divided up into different sections, like, you know, beach lighthouses, inlets, reef and island lighthouses, lake and river stuff. But, you know, this is the kind of book it's fun just to flip through. I'm not just going to, like, really read through. I don't have any lighthouses that I'm particularly interested in. Just enjoy looking at this type of stuff. I was never really into going to the beach very much as a kid, and or as an adult. Not that I have time to do it anymore, but I think it's just because, you know, it was always just a summer thing, and, you know, it's just so hot there, and I don't really like swimming, and, you know, I don't know, I guess there's just elements of it I didn't especially like. But now as an adult, the few times I'm able to go down to the beach, it's always been in the fall or winter, and I actually much prefer that. Just walking on the beach when it's colder, some more like overcast days, I think are really nice. And anyway, I just feel like these lighthouses, pictures of these, a lot of these seem more, I guess just gloomier. I say gloomier in a positive way. That's the kind of seaside setting that I think really appeals to me, not just the kind of hot summer beach vacation type vibe. So just getting this book, flipping through, has made me more interested in just visiting some of these places with the lighthouses, which might be some of the same places or same areas that I would go to as a kid but didn't really appreciate. I'm in North Carolina, here in the U.S. I don't know if that is said anywhere on the channel, but there's a lot of North Carolina lighthouses. I haven't been to hardly any of them. The only one I definitely remember going to was in Bald Head Island, which is just a very small island off the coast of North Carolina. And I'm sure that's in here somewhere. But I liked going there. I think it's I don't know if it's still in use, that one. I think it's part of a museum now, but you could climb up the stairs to the top. I think being a lighthouse keeper feels very aesthetic. I know I'm kind of romanticizing it. I don't know if I would actually like that job, because you probably have to just live out kind of remotely. Some of these, like here, you would be in a house or something near the lighthouse to man it. I don't know if some of these are maybe a little bit more built in, like there's a place to stay in the lighthouse. A lot of these look a little bit too thin for that. But some of them, like this, are a little bit more built in to the house, it looks like. This was in Crescent City, California, 1856. This is the kind of thing I might just fall down a rabbit hole in Wikipedia about. I see a picture of a cool lighthouse and I look it up, and then I'm on the page for it, and then I'm clicking links and looking at a bunch of other lighthouses, or whatever the topic is. And it's the kind of thing that I don't think I'm going to really retain any of the information. This is a cool castle-y one. Highlands, New Jersey. Twin lights of Navesink. Black Island on Rhode Island. This is a nice one. It just looks like a old brick. It's very stout. But yeah, it feels like the kind of thing I might just fall down a Wikipedia rabbit hole about, and I'm not really gonna retain the information probably, because it's not like it's very important or useful to me. It's just kind of fun just to kind of like digitally explore the world a little bit. I'm not really going to be able to visit all of these places, but I think, in a very small way, it just gives me a little better perspective on the world, just kind of looking at a type of thing such as a lighthouse, but just in, around the world, or at least around the country. I think these might be mostly U.S. lighthouses. I think it's really easy just to get so stuck in a very narrow mindset in the world, or rather in your local area. Just everything you see is just right in your zone, and you're not really looking at places outside of that. It just makes the world feel very small and kind of disconnected. It's nice to just flip through a book like this and just find a picture that appeals to you, and just read a little bit about it, and you don't have to get anything out of it or remember the information. There's not going to be a test on it later, but it's just nice to see things in the world that exist that I'm not just going to see in my regular life. It's inspiring to me, just not necessarily that I really want to go see this specific lighthouse, but just kind of seeing things that people have built over the years, just seeing different architecture, kind of like different artistic styles, different environments, and weather, and scenery just around the world. I think it's really nice. It's inspiring. It just kind of makes me want to get out there more, do more traveling, even just more local stuff, see more things. Well, that's a dirty one. This is Charleston, South Carolina, which I have been to several years ago. I haven't been to this lighthouse. I don't know if you can even go inside here. Looking a little rusty down there. Okay, the next section, we've got Shigeru Mizuki's Kono Monogatari. This is one of Miranda's books as well. She likes this author a lot. He did Gegege no Kitaro, and has a lot of just yokai informational books, and just a lot of yokai art and influence in his stuff. And I don't know this one very well, but I think it's just another book with a lot of yokai elements to it. I think the art of these is interesting because manga is it's not an old art form, but it's been going on for at least 60, 70 years, I believe. And this guy Mizuki had a lot of he was a big pioneer in some of the earlier days, and I think he just kind of kept a similar style. I think he had been wounded in the war, maybe, and had to change his art style. I don't remember if he lost a hand or an arm, or he was just injured and had to use his non-dominant hand, or in some way had to change his art form to a little bit more of a simplistic style. But I think it's cool to read these older ones. I think manga today, especially if it's not something that you're really into, can kind of all look very similar. It all has a very distinct, manga look, for better or for worse. And I wouldn't really agree with that. I think there's definitely a lot more nuance to it than that. But, I do understand that a lot of that can just look very similar. And it's cool just to see something that came out, not too much earlier than some stuff that has that, manga anime look, that kind of stereotypical look someone might think about. And it actually just looks a lot more similar to an older cartoon, or like an older, like a newspaper comic or something that I would read here in the US, or just, coming out of the West. So I think it's cool, stuff like this. There's just even more of a similarity to stuff that I read here growing up. I read a little bit, not of this book, but of some Gegege no Kitaro. And it's pretty funny. I think part of the humor is maybe just in the translation. When you translate something to another language, it's you can't get the wording exactly the way it sounds in its original language. So I think some things definitely some meaning and humor is lost in translation, but some, I think, it can be gained sometimes, just because the wording will just be a little bit funny, because it'll be like in a way that's a little bit different from how somebody would actually talk, but they're trying to stay as faithful to the original text as possible. So there's just some funny phrasing. But yeah, these stories are all they're just kind of goofy from what I've read. Here's some scary little snow guys. This looks like maybe his name's Snowrunt. He's a Pokemon. He's just a little triangle guy. Lives in the snow. I think it's fun to see the design choices behind some Pokemon. A lot of them are based on animals, but there are some that are based on yokai. So I'll see some stuff in books like this, and maybe I don't know about those little triangle guys in particular, but you'll see some stuff, and I'll recognize like a Pokemon in that, or something else, maybe out of some type of Japanese media, like a character or something based on a yokai. I think it's cool to see. And then you see kind of this like folklore origin as portrayed in books like this. Next up, Wabi Sabi by Beth Kempton. Something I had briefly flipped through. Again, this is one of Miranda's. I think it's seeming like a lot of these are hers now that I'm actually going through these. But this is kind of a nice one. I don't really like how it doesn't really open. I mean, it's hardback, but you can see it's just kind of sticks straight up. It feels like you have to read it fully. I can't even open it very well. but you know, maybe if this is read more often, it would be a little more flexible. I think Miranda has read through all of this. I have flipped through a little bit. Wabi-sabi is an intuitive response to beauty that reflects the true nature of life. Wabi-sabi is an acceptance and appreciation of the impermanent, imperfect, and incomplete nature of everything. Wabi-sabi is a recognition of the gifts of simple, slow, and natural living. According to old Beth. And stuff like this is the kind of thing that in, you know, more modern days, and by modern I just mean kind of like maybe the last 10 years or so, when everything just feels like it's a video essay on YouTube. It's the kind of thing that in those modern times I might just kind of passively find a video about that I'll, you know, maybe listen to while I'm walking or on the way to work or something, and or maybe like have it on in the background when I'm brushing my teeth. Basically, in some way, it could be all the same information. And you know, I think this is kind of an interesting philosophy and topic to get into, but it's something gets lost, I think. And even when it's a video, you know, there's audio elements, visual elements, they're showing, you know, like pictures and illustrations of these elements. Whereas this book, as you can see, it's pretty much all just text. You know, broken up a little bit by, you know, some lists or things like this that kind of breaks up walls of text. But you know, stuff like that in these videos, I think it just really gets lost. In a way that reading, it doesn't. I think it's just because, you know, we're conditioned so much these days just to be entirely passive and just being fed. You know, even if it's something as informational, when you're just watching or listening to it, it's so much easier to just let your mind wander and you don't really have to pay attention. But when you're reading it and it can just be all the same information, it's more active. At least that's how I feel. You kind of have to choose to focus on it and pay attention. You know, sometimes if you maybe read through a paragraph and you realize you were kind of just reading the words without really understanding it very well, you can just go back and reread it. You know, it's very easy to just catch yourself, even just like one sentence or, you know, whatever at a time, catch yourself zoning out and just go back and actually focus on it and read it. I feel like I do get a lot more out of it when I am reading. I think it's just that kind of intention to focus and pay attention to this thing. I feel like I actually learn it a little bit better. So, you know, this is the type of thing that I should just go back if if I'm looking for something to fill in a little bit of time, a little bit of in-between time. You know, I think it's nicer just to go to a book like this than to watch a video. Not that I really follow that advice very much, but I think I would do well too. Next up, we got Zelda Majora's Mask manga, another one of Miranda's, although I have flipped through this a little bit. Majora's Mask is one of the Zelda games I played a little bit as a kid, but I don't think we ever owned. And Ocarina of Time that I did play through. I think I just remember renting this for a couple days at a time from Blockbuster back in the day. So anyway, I don't really remember the story very well. And I think this manga is just the entire story. So, you know, you can see how short it is. So, you know, it's definitely very condensed because the game, you know, is a lot longer with, I think, a lot more text than this. But I think it's fun just to see something like that, even if you know the story, just to see it in a different medium like this. I think one of the appeals of the game is, this is definitely like more of a darker world and story, I think, from what I understand of Zelda games. But something about just those like earlier, polygon, 3D graphics that a lot of Nintendo 64 games had, it just had like an even creepier, more unsettling quality that I think really amplified the setting of this game. Just looking at the Happy Mask Salesman here, he's still like a little bit creepy looking, but it doesn't match the game. There he is again. I just remember in the game he just feels like he's like really tall. He's just very hunched over. He's got this like crazy smile. And this is kind of like towards the beginning of the game too, maybe the very beginning. I don't remember. And he's just all in this like kind of dark area. You're talking to him. The camera's doing some like weird close-ups on his face. This kind of has a creepy atmosphere that I think is kind of lost. And so this is just a little bit more. I think it's just like a more like childlike art style. Which is also cool. It's just different. Got the giants holding up the moon. I remember this in the game. Fluent Forever by Gabriel Weiner. This is a book that I've read through, and I've even listened to the audiobook of it, although I think it's definitely a little better in book form because there's, it's informational and it's kind of divided into sections. It's not like a novel that you're supposed to just read straight through. There's like diagrams and things like that. I guess I have the note of, I wrote in here years ago reading this. So this book is kind of, I have mixed feelings about. There's not anything especially negative about this, and this guy, from what I have learned about him, is able to relatively quickly learn several languages and, just seems to have methods that, make things stick. So as somebody who has been struggling to learn Japanese for several years now with, very slow results, mostly due to my own just inconsistent studying, this kind of book appealed to me. I thought maybe I could read this and see, just find some more better ways to study and memorize things. The thing about this is that it seems very focused on Latin-based languages, which, of course are already going to be much easier as an English speaker, these languages that are the most similar to the one that I already speak. A lot of them seem kind of like oriented towards that kind of thing. And another thing about this is there's a lot of words in here, but kind of the main thing I got out of this book is just that this whole thing just feels like it's an ad for Anki, which is a website or app or whatever program that you uses a spaced repetition system, which is it's a method for learning and memorization where basically there's flashcards, which feels like kind of a derivative term for it, but it'll show you information on one side, there's something on the other side, you have to make sure you know it, what's on the other side, check yourself, if you don't know it, that card will start showing up more often. If you do know it, it will show up less often, it'll get pushed further back. So basically the stuff that it's supposed to ideally show up again just before you forget it again, and that kind of helps strengthen the memories of things. So if you're forgetting it, it'll show up more often until it's able to just get further and further back. And anyway, it's a system that I've used to study for a long time, and I definitely think that's a good method, but I don't think you need an entire book. That's basically just saying use Anki or basically use a spaced repetition system of some kind to memorize things, and also practice speaking, more specifically shadowing native speakers, as in just trying to exactly mimic the way that they say things, not just kind of practicing on your own in the void, but specifically like studying the details of pronunciation and that kind of thing. So those are kind of like the two main points of this. So it was all good information, but I feel like I really just got those are the two main things I got out of it, which I already kind of knew anyway. So I don't know if I actually learned too much. Indeed. Got the Lonely Planet Japan book. This is another one of Miranda's. She definitely does a better job of kind of curating some of this stuff, like getting some more of these just informational flip-through type books. And we'll actually learn things from it, and we'll use them as reference books. Like, maybe we'll see a movie a Japanese movie set somewhere in Japan, and she'll go to this book and look that place up and just kind of get more information about it and actually learn things that way, just in which is funny I'm saying that like that's a strange thing, or like that's like a novel thing, when that would just be a normal way to learn things for most of the time, is to reference them in a book. That's what I've done for half of my life before the internet was so prominent. But something about just having it tangibly here is nice, I think. It helps you retain the information a little bit. So it's just kind of guidebook is kind of a vague term. Guidebook to Japan. Just various little bits of information about just different areas, history of places, some like photography, things to do, just very, very basic informational type stuff. All these little sections, as you can see, are just a couple paragraphs long, if even that long. But this is something else that it's a nice picture. I think it's really nice to use it in that way as a reference. So one way you can use it is just flipping through. And this is divided into different areas of Japan. Here's Mount Fuji and around Tokyo. Central Honshu, beyond Nagano. This is an area that I really hope to visit. In Nagano is the monkey park, seeing snow monkeys. Nagano is an area that when I was applying to the JET program, I listed that as my top choice for placement. I just think it's really pretty. There's a lot of really nice nature there in the mountains. So, I can two ways to use this. I can flip through the book like this. When something pops out at me, like that, Nagano, like a picture or just information, something like that, and I can go to this section, read a little bit about it, and listing some breweries there, stores, nature areas, shrines, shopping, museums, snow sports, just various little things there, and it just feels like a nice little intro to learning about something. So I find something I like, and I can just learn a little bit more, kind of expand my knowledge of the area a little bit, and maybe just think of some more things that I'd like to do if I am able to go to this place. And even if I'm not, it's nice just to kind of plan in your head, plan a trip out, or just have things in general, like travel locations and things like that you'd like to do, if you ever get the chance to do. I think just having that type of stuff in your head, and just having a little bit more details like you might find in here, is really nice, and I think that helps you get closer to actually making these trips, rather than just having like a vague notion of I want to travel in general. Having some more specifics is nice. And another way you can find this is you can use this book is if you already know an area that you're interested in, you can just look that up and go there. So Sapporo, that's another This is my second choice that I put on my application. Sapporo is in the northern Japan, in Hokkaido. It looks very pretty. It looks like they get a lot of snow. So I can look that up. I can go, I want to learn more about Sapporo. Go here. I can see more about the area. There's the map of Hokkaido. Some landmarks, some, national parks, major cities, museums, little things like that. So it's just nice to look up, Sapporo Beer Museum. This is something I'd like to go to. Although I don't think I've actually had Sapporo beer, but that's one of the few Japanese beers that you commonly see, even here in the U.S. Sapporo walking tour. 13 block long Central Park, Dodori Koen. I know they have a lot of kind of major festivals of the area there. Like there's if I'm not mistaken, oh yeah, here it is right here, the Ice Festival, where there's a lot of like ice sculptures. Oh yeah, there it is. This is something I'd really like to see. I watch videos of this, now and again, just to see what they do every year. And I can look at nearby areas, here's beyond Sapporo, smaller areas that are within, a day trip distance from Sapporo. So if I'm planning a trip, or even if I'm planning, to live there, which, I might be, I can just have kind of like a brief plan, just knowing what's around, having some ideas of things to do. Another crazy picture. Next up is one of Miranda's sketchbooks. I thought this was just a blank book. So I don't think she's used this very much. So yeah, I was like looking at her art. We have a lot of it up on the walls. I really like this style of just sketching. Sometimes she'll do this. Here's another, just like sketches of a pen, sparkling water. I think these are really good. Sometimes she'll draw these pen kind of sketchy drawings, and then we'll watercolor over it. I don't think there's any in here right now. I think she's just kind of playing around with all of these, but I do really like that style. We have some of that up on the walls, or she'll go and sell that at conventions, that kind of thing. So Pokemon XY manga. Pokemon Adventures is a long-running manga series that I remember reading as a young kid, so it's been going on for at least most of the time that Pokemon as a franchise or whatever has existed. And I read through the first series. Actually, I don't think I've even read all the way through. But, you know, the original, you know, Generation 1 Pokemon, red, blue, and green, and yellow. They have green, which was in Japan, Japanese version. They also have yellow. So they have kind of four games in the manga. And, you know, they'll come out, they'll have like a little series. Each one is roughly, these are pretty thin, so I'm not sure if there's more of these types of books. The other ones I have are probably, you know, twice the thickness of this. And I think there's 6 or 7 for the series, at least the first one. I think they're all similar length. And they're fun. It goes through kind of the story of the game. So it's different from the anime. It's more focused on the stories of the game. So, you know, that your character is like your game character. So this is about, you know, X the character and Y the character. Or, you know, in the original ones that I've read through, you know, you have Red the character, his rival is Blue. You know, and they're going through kind of the world of the games, but they all have their own original stories. So it's kind of set in the world of the games. It kind of follows those events, but it's different. You know, different elements are changed. Different characters are given a lot more. They're expanded on more, just have some more, I keep wanting to say screen time. This is not a screen, so I can't think of a better word for it, but they're just given some more time to develop, which is cool. I would recommend checking out this series if you like Pokemon. It's easy to get into. You can just buy one series. You know, just pick your favorite generation of games and buy that series. It's only going to be about 6 books, and just read through it. And, you know, it's a nice kind of like complete story of that world and generation. And it's nice to see, you know, all the Pokemon you like from that generation. You know, see how they integrate into the story, you know, a lot of characters that you like, and especially seeing characters just given some more development and things to do. You know, the games are very focused on just kind of like catching and battling. That's a large element of the time. A large percentage of the time that you spend in the game is, you know, just catching Pokemon and battling. But, you know, here it's a lot more story driven, which I think is like a cool aspect that I more enjoy about the Pokemon worlds. You know, I don't like the gameplay all that much. I get kind of bogged down with like battling and catching Pokemon, but I do like the storylines in the worlds, like, you know, character design and all that stuff is very cool. So, Pokemon Adventures, would recommend checking it out if you are interested at all in Pokemon. Moon, Junji Ito book. This is Miranda's. I have not read through very much Junji Ito at all. And I don't even know if she's read this one. He seems to have been pretty prolific in recent years. I think ever since like 2020, he started to put out a whole lot more stuff. So, you know, I can't even keep up with all of this stuff. I think this is just one of the newer ones. It's probably not even new at this point. I don't know if it has a publication date in here somewhere, but anyway, I know he's a pretty popular author. I just haven't gotten into him too much. an interesting art style, I think. I'm not too big on horror, especially like body horror, which, you know, he seems to have kind of a lot of in these, but if you are into that, I think that it's cool. This one doesn't seem too gross from just skimming through, so maybe I can, oh. Nope, she just took all of her skin off. Alright, well, I spoke too soon. Got Frog and Toad up next. I think, so I'll put these up together. You probably know Frog and Toad. It's a pretty popular children's book, at least where I'm from. I always enjoyed it. It's just very simple, simple stories. You know, they're for kids, but they're also, you know, you can read through this whole book and not very long. You can see, you know, there's not that many words on it, but everything is very simple and, but not simple in that it's the themes and the stories aren't kind of related to real life. You know, there's a lot of just like things that everybody experiences in here, but just in a very, it's not wordy, it's just very to the point. But you know, it kind of just deals with like friendship and even some kind of like, you know, darker themes, at least for, I think that maybe aren't in kids' books very much, just kind of about like loneliness, sadness, you know, like here's a story where Toad is talking about his sad time of the day where he waits for mail to come, which makes him sad because he never gets any mail. So nobody sends him mail, so he waits for the mail and is sad about it. And then Frog goes home and he's like, I gotta go. He writes a letter to Toad. He gives it to the snail to deliver. You know, snail, you know, takes it to Toad's house. He finally gets a letter. Yep, there it is. They waited 4 whole days for him to get a letter, so anyway, just, you know, just little simple stories like that kind of touch on just some, you know, a range of feelings. It's not all just like silly kids books. You know, I think these are great kids books. Anyway, I think the reason we have this specifically is because we have this the Japanese translation of it. So I think it's just as a reference to read through both at the same time. And again, a great kids book and a great Japanese book for adults trying to learn the language, because it is, you know, simple. There's not a whole lot of words. There's only, I don't think there's any kanji in here at all, which can make it a little bit harder to read, I think, if you don't know if you know the kanji but you can't remember the word in kana, which, you know, I fall into that sometimes. But anyway, all very simple. The sentences are very short. There's not a lot of detail. The grammar is simple, you know, all that stuff. That makes it great for kids and great for people learning a new language. But I think it's interesting like this, just to see books that I knew from my childhood in English and just rereading them in Japanese is cool. last section, one of Miranda's books, Snow Country by Yasunari Kawabata. I always feel so strange just, trying to pronounce a Japanese name. I've seen part of the movie of this, like part one of the two parts. I think it's an NHK movie about this. So I don't know too much about this. I think it's set in let's start over. So we have this is one of Miranda's books, Snow Country. It's a Japanese novel from, I think, the 30s, something like that. I'm not sure if it's set then or if it's set in a previous era, but I really don't know too much about this. This is just purely a novel. I think in Japanese originally this is written in some type of poetic meter of some kind, and I don't think that style is really kept up in the English translation. I think it's more just a general, just a kind of a straightforward novel. It's relatively short. I always kind of picture this as something longer, but the words aren't even taking up much room on the page. So this could be something I could just quickly read through if I just wanted to read through a novel. Miranda really likes this, so that's a good recommendation for me. Armchair Demonology. Magical benefits of cultivating bad habits. This one is actually mine. I found this at a bookstore, and there's a section where they have zines and a lot of stuff that just people in the area have made, little self-published things, and these are also in there. It was just the kind of thing I was flipping through a little bit at the store and I thought was cool. I don't really know why I even bought it. I think this is this is just a little bit about tobacco, like smoking tobacco, and kind of like a little bit of a history of it in relation to like philosophy and fantasy and kind of like magical studies, like I don't know. Just magic in general, like real life magic, fantasy magic, like alchemy, old timey witchcraft, all that kind of stuff. So this is the whole thing. I think I just read through all of this at the store. It's only a couple pages long, and I just thought it was kind of an interesting little thing, just like a connection between this, like a common thing, people do, just smoking, but it's more thought of as just like kind of a general bad habit or addiction and that kind of thing, which, definitely is, but I just think it's cool seeing something like this and having it be a little bit more connected. you know, something that, you know, maybe is not good for you, but is used for more of a reason, like you're trying to connect with something. So I guess that was kind of the appeal of it to me. Okay, the rest of these, I believe, are all photo books, so these are all mine. You can see that Miranda's the one with more of a diverse range of tastes in books, and I just have a big old stack of photo books. But these are really great coffee table books, and not too often, but I do, you know, flip through these. I'll pick them up and go through them here and there. This one I got at a trip to Kinokuniya, which is it's a Japanese bookstore that I don't know if it's based in Japan or if it's based, you know, in the West, but they just sell a lot of Japanese books. But it kind of feels to me like a Barnes and Noble, but just, you know, purely books by Japanese authors, and they have a lot of Japanese language books as well as, you know, and also English translations of Japanese books. So a very fun store for me to explore. And I got this here, a trip there a little while ago, and this whole thing is just pictures of people's Tokyo apartments, and there's a little bit of a description about it. You know, you can see here, but there's really not much information. And, you know, I'm very slow at reading Japanese too, so it would take me a little while to even just try and get through something like this. So I'm primarily just use this like purely visually, and I've always been interested in just kind of seeing how different people live, just kind of you know, if this were not a you know, just taking a look into somebody's like living area, you know, how they decorate, what they have out, you know, is it messy and kind of like chaotic like this, you know, what kind of like, it's fun just to make you know, guesses about what kind of things they're into, what kind of life they lead, just based off, you know, pictures of their room, or just, you know, I enjoy just like going into somebody's room, like, you know, seeing a friend's room for the first time, or even just like seeing a glimpse, you know, a piece of a room through a window, that kind of thing. I think it's really interesting. Or watching vlogs, or, you know, videos online, people film, just seeing what's in their background and what's in their life. So this really stood out to me. It just feels very aesthetic. I think some of it is probably just the photography style. Everything just feels very warm, and kind of nostalgic. And I think a lot of this stuff was made years. I'm not sure. I think this might have been a project over several years, and a lot of this stuff might be kind of like 90s and 2000s, which is, you know, to me a very nostalgic era. That was my childhood. So just that kind of like warm look reminds me a lot of my own childhood. We got Charlie Brown up here. I wonder if Peanuts is popular in Japan. There's another Charlie Brown. It's fun just to flip through this every now and then. They've got a good coffee table set up. Now these must be older because a lot of these have a box TV in the corner. And I actually like this style a lot. I don't know if it's purely a Japanese style, but just having a couch or something on one side, a coffee table in the middle, and then I don't have any in this picture, but people will sit around the coffee table, use it as just a regular table. So you have kind of like the upright sitting area, the table where you can sit down to eat or whatever, like at the table, and there's the TV in the corner of the room. And I don't really see that very much here in the US, but I've seen it in various Japanese living spaces or through media, that kind of thing. And I think it's a cool look. I'm not really sure why that's more of a thing there. I think it opens the room up in a way. I'm not really sure if that's how true that is. That's just how it kind of feels to me. But maybe it's just because something that I've only really seen in pictures and media, and not something it's not a way that I ever set up my own TV space. Yeah, I like the warm colors a lot. There's not too much going on here, but it's cool. I like how some of these are very packed with things. This feels very clean. They have the bed, it's a tatami room, bed's folded up, and they just have a ton of music. So it seems like the space is pretty small, but they have a nice big window, right next to the bed. This whole music set up with cassette tapes and records. And it feels kind of cluttered in a good way. Maybe cluttered's not really the word, because it's not like it's spilling out anywhere. It's all very neatly put away, but there's just a lot of things here. And I really like that kind of maximal look. That's kind of how I have stuff here, but not very clean and put away. Often just kind of spilling out into the living space, which does feel kind of cluttered in a bad way sometimes. But I like this. You can tell this person, and this picture might be from, the 80s or 90s, I'm not sure. Just based on the technology, or maybe it's just somebody who grew up through that time and they just prefer this type of media for their music. I don't know, it's just fun to look at just a picture of a room of somebody I've never met and won't ever meet, and just kind of imagine what they're into, what their life's like. Here's another one that's very maximal look. Seems like all of the space is used. I like this too. I like the walls. That's how I like to decorate too, is just cover the walls with things. Some of these, they just have leftover food out. You've got like an ashtray here, half a drink, a mug, a bunch of music that's just kind of out and open. Stuff like this just seems like, I don't really know the circumstances of this, but this seems like a person who's like a little bit messy and, just doesn't clean up after themselves. At least maybe leaves a couple days or whatever, leaves some stuff out. Doesn't clean up immediately. I can definitely relate to that. that's an aspect of myself that I don't really like, because I just get bothered having things out and be messy, even though I'm the one that created that mess and did not clean it up. So it's something that bothers me about myself, and I just feel a little bit better about it, seeing things like this. Like, maybe this person also struggles with things like that, and they just have a hard time cleaning up immediately, and clutter kind of builds up. They've got like food out and CDs out. They're probably just busy doing other things. They don't really have that much time to like sit down and clean everything. So I don't know, it just makes me feel a little bit less alone, just kind of seeing some habits that I don't like in myself, but then you just see other people that maybe have the same kind of thing going on. Look how big this window is, just takes up almost floor to ceiling. I love seeing all these box TVs in here. Now this setup is a little bit like what I've got going on here. Just a little floor desk, got the cushion underneath, maybe a blanket over there. Even got the lamp, which I rarely use this. I just have this for the video to illuminate the pages a little bit. I've got the PAX bookshelf, which I don't have here next to me. It's in the next room. So, it just looks very cozy. And I think something about, unlike this room where I have a lot more distractions, like I have the whole kitchen area, the door to go outside is right here, the TV, my desk and, computer monitor over there. It's a lot more distractions around, but this space just feels kind of like what this could be, but just a lot more focused. Like, I feel like I could just study here a lot better, really just focus on reading or just doing some work or learning something. So, Tokyo style. Hot shot tips and tricks for taking better pictures. I was trying to stretch my legs and I kicked over the stand. I haven't spent too much time. I like taking pictures, and I've gotten into photography a little bit, but I haven't spent too much time kind of like learning techniques and things like that. So I thought, just getting a book like this, which just has example pictures, a basic concept in, the art of photography, just like cropping things, using high contrast, whatever else, reflections, long range shots. Low point of view. So, just some different kind of like ideas. This is something nice just for me to like look through, just to get ideas about things. I feel like a lot of times I'm just taking pictures of the same types of stuff from similar angles. I don't experiment all that much, and half of my pictures just turn out very poorly because I don't really know what I'm doing. So it's kind of cool, and you can see all the camera info, what type of camera and lens, and what the film is, all that stuff, and just a little bit of info about the types of shots, you know, what you can do with it. I would like to get more portraits. I find it kind of difficult to do. I would like more pictures of myself, maybe just like some more like stylistic stuff, or even just some more like candid type stuff, which of course I can't do of myself, because I will know I can't do candid of myself, because I'm, you know, or, you know, maybe you count candid as just like you're out doing something and just kind of like take a selfie or something, but, you know, something gets lost in that. It's a little different than if somebody else took a picture of me. But I'd also like to get more pictures of like friends or people I know, just some more like people pictures. I think would be nice. I really like seeing pictures. Well, I'm not seeing any in here. Colored flash. That's something I like to do. I have some gels, or that's not the right word. Little colored, you know, pieces of plastic that you put over the flash of a camera, and it changes the color of it. I think is fun to experiment with. But my the camera I use most often, which is the Lomo apparatus, the flash is broken on it. I don't know what's wrong. So I haven't really experimented with that in a while. I've just been getting stuff outside during the day. You know, some of the stuff I'm not that interested in. Here's some more colored gels. You know, like product shots, like that kind of thing. I don't really care about. And, you know, I don't like pictures in this. So, I mean, some of these I don't really like that much. I think these are like kind of cool, but and I'm not even sure how to describe what I don't like about it. I think maybe it just feels like too processed. It looks too like clean and modern. I'm not really sure. I think it's just different from what I tend to go for, which is just kind of like grainier stuff, you know, just kind of lower quality, more just point and shoot type stuff. I think some of these just feel like, you know, I kind of like this more in comparison. This feels more like just a picture, just a regular real life one. Some of these just feel a little bit too like pristine, which is definitely like a style and like you know, something, a way to learn that. It's just not something I am very interested in, at least right now. Self-portrait. So here's something that I could stand to learn about. I have very few self-portraits, and I cringe even just filming myself like I'm doing right now. I'm kind of dreading going back through and having to edit through me just talking for like what's been about an hour at this point, and you know, just seeing myself on camera. I really don't like it, but I would like to get more comfortable with it, which is why I'm filming these. A reason I've been, you know, filming videos more of myself, and in that same area, I would really like to get more pictures of myself and just kind of get more comfortable doing that. You know, I don't want to go through life and just not really have much pictures of myself. I'd like to just kind of like document myself over time. So anyway, something to improve upon for me. another photo book. It's called This Is Happening, and these, this book is a square. I like this, and I believe the pictures are all squares too, which up until somewhat recently, when they started purely wanting everyone to make vertical portrait mode videos on Instagram, and that's pretty much the only thing that gets any views anymore. But for several years it was just the square format, which I thought was cool. So these are all from Instagram. There is a list of all of the pages, you can, if you see any pictures that you like, and I've done this too. I see something and I'll go, look up who the person was, and it has their Instagram name, and if they have anything else on here, like I'm seeing some, they have like their personal website, or a blog page, or Tumblr, things like that. So I think this is really cool because I like to find other photographers online on like Flickr, or sometimes through Instagram, things like that. It's fun to find people. And I thought getting a photo book like this that I could just flip through and just check out, if there's a picture I like, just go to their page, see what else they have. Again, like with the Tokyo style, I think it's fun to, something like this, you can just take one single picture from somebody that, in some ways really doesn't say very much about them specifically, but you can kind of maybe just try and figure out, what they're like, what they're about through, this one picture that's, caught their eye, this one frame, something they thought was interesting. And it's fun just to kind of infer about them. And then with this, you can also learn more about them. Just go check out their, online page. I really like this rain on the lens. And, see what else they have, and see, if you're right at all, if there's anything you maybe like made up about them that seems accurate, or what's wrong. I remember there was one picture in here I looked up a little while ago. Maybe I'll come across it. This is a good one too, with the lightning strike. Crazy. There's a picture in here that I really liked. It looks very like it looked just like a nostalgic, just picture of a summer memory from the past, that kind of thing. I really liked it, and I looked up their page, and I went and I looked at their other stuff, and I thought, because this picture is so appealing to me, I wonder if the rest of their stuff is going to have that same appeal, or maybe I'm going to find similarities, to myself through their page, like with, if nothing else, just with their kind of like artistic eye. And I actually didn't dislike anything on their page, but I think just whatever that drew me to that one picture that's in this book, I didn't really find in the rest of their stuff. So sometimes that happens. It's like when you hear a song from a musician. This is a good one. The Wet Leaves. This happens all the time. I'll hear a song for the first time. I'll really like the song, and then I'll go check out the rest of that album of that artist that I haven't heard of previously. And then I'll listen to the rest of the album, or maybe just some other songs by that musician, and I won't really like any of them, just that one song that I heard. It's interesting to me when that happens. You would think if you really like one thing that somebody did, some art form that somebody created, you would like more of their stuff, but it's not always the case. Something I like about this book is that, there are professional photographers in here, this is their social media, and there's also amateurs like myself, just people that are kind of interested in taking pictures, and it's just really nice to see, it's so easy to get down on yourself and just kind of think, here's this art form I'm interested in, but I don't really know what I'm doing. A lot of my stuff turns out bad, or even if there's stuff that I like, I don't really know if other people would like it or if it has any artistic value. So I find a lot of solidarity in this. Is something like this. This picture really stands out to me. It's just what looks like a kind of dirty blanket or towel out, in the grass in the fall. It looks like kind of mid-fall. There's a lot of leaves on the ground. It's just looks like several just old books out, and the whole thing is kind of dark. Lighting, there's a lot of shadows. There's probably a lot of trees around here kind of creating the shadows on the side. So for whatever reason, this picture really appeals to me, and I think part of it is it feels like something that I might see myself, just a little scene, a little slice of life, like maybe they were having a picnic out here or something, or they're just reading out. I'm not sure why there's so many books. Maybe there's a bunch of people involved in this, or just one person that wanted to skim through a bunch of books, but I don't know, it seems like something that I would see in real life and really like, and maybe try and take a picture of. And obviously, since it's in this book, somebody, if nobody else, the editor of the book or whatever, thought this had some type of artistic value and put it in. So it just makes me feel a little bit better about myself and my own pictures, that somebody will find some value in them. With cameras that I bought. So this is the Lomo apparat. These are all lomography brands. The Action Sampler, the Fisheye, and the Sprocket Rocket. These are four of the cameras I have. I think these are all the lomography brand ones I have. A cool brand that is, they do have some nicer stuff, like more expensive and higher quality cameras, but what I really like about them is that they have a lot of just kind of toy cameras, just point and shoots, experimental type things, and which is the type of photography that I'm more interested in. And with all the cameras, they include these photo books with them, which are all, I'll just go through these one by one. They're all pictures, of course, taken with the camera that you just bought, so it gives you ideas of the types of things that you can do. Maybe I should get my cameras out. I can put side by side with that. So this is my action sampler, and there we go. It's got the little lens, the flash colors you can put in. I've got like a kind of a purple and then a blue on here that'll color the flash if I want to use that. Of course, it's broken right now, so I can't use it. But so this is divided into sections a little bit. You know, just like equipment, tips about using the camera, experimentation, more experimental type pictures. And some more of these are just kind of general, these are just pictures that people took using the camera. I get a lot of inspiration out of this, and I like the style in general, and this seems to be kind of what the brand is about, which I like, is just making photography accessible to people, even if you don't really have much knowledge in the area, which definitely describes me. Does anyone ever really know what is going on? We definitely don't, but it doesn't matter. Agreed. So there is some text through here. A lot of this is just pictures that I like. And as far as I remember, there's nothing too informative in the text. It's just kind of like almost more like stylistic than anything. Just talking about go out there, take pictures, experiment, all that kind of stuff. Which is cool. And again, as I was saying with that Instagram book, it's nice just to see pictures that just, other people took. Just like random other people like me took these, and, somebody found value in them. The photographer themselves thought this was a good shot, and then, the editors of these books also did and put them out. So some of these are using lens attachments that came with the camera. Like this one, there's a kaleidoscope lens that kind of, wherever you point, kind of the center of the camera kind of has this kaleidoscope effect. And I actually don't like it too much on this picture. When I use it, I like to try and have the kind of like the main subject in the middle of the picture to have that kaleidoscope effect, but it is interesting on the side like that. Got some black and white stuff. It's really fun just to see the types of things other people do. Some of these I don't especially care for, and some of them I think are very cool or inspiring, kind of like get me thinking a little bit differently about the types of stuff I'd like to do. Here's another attachment. There's something that splits the frame, so you can cover up part of the lens, and it will so it'll, if I'm doing half and half, I'll just cover up half the lens, take a picture, and then you can use multiple exposure on this. So I'll, double expose on that. I'll cover up the other side and then take a picture on the previously covered side. So you can kind of like make these almost like a collage. And this person had it kind of splits unevenly, which is cool. I usually just do like in halves or in quarters if I'm doing it, and I rarely even experiment with it because it's a little bit of a hassle to do, but I think it is a cool effect. I like stuff like this a lot, just pictures of people being out. Here's something that is a little bit more like what I would use the kaleidoscope attachment for. I just like seeing stuff that's, it just reminds me of being a kid when film cameras were a lot more, I mean, I guess they're still common enough, but they're more, that was more of the norm for documenting things is, if there's any event or something like that, you might take a film camera out to and, just take a couple pictures to remember the experience with. So it just kind of takes me back to my, childhood days, seeing pictures like this, just kind of pictures of people just out and about, just doing something. This section's more about accessories. So, here's the kaleidoscope lens I was talking about. These all have that. I like that attachment a lot. This is a nice one. Has the flash on, the background's very dark, but it still has that kind of like dark, warm look. I think sometimes when I use the flash, it makes the, whoever's or whatever's right in front of it feel a little bit too bright in comparison, but I think this is kind of a nice contrast. So one thing it doesn't tell you, unless it does perhaps later in the book, is what types of, and this is a fun multiple exposure one, and almost just looks like a collage of just things on top of each other. It doesn't tell you what type of film they're using in these pictures, which is fine. It's not something that I think especially matters to me, but I think that could be nice to see. If there's a picture I really like, I could just look up what type of film they use. Now this is a fun one. This is using double exposure, but then two different colors on the flash. I haven't experimented with this very much, but I like the effect a lot. I really need to see about getting my flash fixed. I think there's a lot of experimentation you can do with that. More multiple exposure. I like these a lot too. A picture of a person double exposed, like over a background. I've messed with this sometimes. It does turn out well sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't, and it's kind of hard to have an eye for it. I think you need kind of more of an up-close picture of a person, and then, or whatever, like a subject of your picture, and then have more of a background picture so that both of them are still kind of clear, I think. And I've done this before too. You take kind of like 2 or 3 exposed pictures of just like more of a broad scene, and they kind of get chaotic, kind of like visually a little bit too chaotic sometimes. This is something I have like not really experimented with at all, is using long exposure, and I really should, especially because my stupid flash is broken. So maybe a good way to get some more night photography. I've used this just a little bit before and without very good results. Usually, I think the camera moves too much, and so the whole thing just becomes too blurry. And I also don't really know how to use, I don't really know how long to hold it open. Like sometimes I've done it and the whole thing just gets completely overexposed. I'm not sure. That, you know, obviously something I could look up and learn about how to do. So, really just complaining about nothing. But something I'd like to get into a little bit more. So that's the apparat. This is the one I use the most. It's just kind of a general, it's a wide angle, but otherwise it's a pretty standard camera. I've got the fisheye. This is my fisheye. I like to use this occasionally, but things look much better up close with a fisheye, and I think in general I'm taking pictures of things that are further away, so it almost becomes pointless unless you just like that framing of like a circle in the middle of film. So I tend to not use this that much, but I do like the pictures I get at when I do. I just have to be a little bit more creative with finding things to take pictures of. This one's has a little bit more text about kind of like the development of the camera and kind of like the fisheye style. So here's the pictures. So, you know, a lot of these are just kind of, they're very up close of things, of people, you know, or dolls, or Pez dispensers. I think these are kind of cool, skateboard ones. Now these two I think are nice because I think they're really utilizing the fisheye effect. You know, it's very exaggerated in the center of it, and then the further out you get, the smaller everything gets. This reminds me of just some like old school music videos where it's shot with the fisheye from a low angle. A lot of animal shots in here. Now, just skimming through all these together back to back, there's a lot more in this one that I'm not really as into, just personally. I don't find them that aesthetic. I like this one a lot, that's cool. And this looks like a selfie too. I have a hard time getting selfies with film cameras. I think they always turn out kind of weird, but I like this one. This also has double exposure on it. Here's that one's using that. I think a lot of these cameras, lomography cameras, have like double exposure features, which I really like. This one's just a shorter one. I think that's a nice one. Oh, and this has, maybe the other book had this too. It has all of the people. I don't know if the pages are labeled, but anyway, all of the photographers of the pictures in here. Okay. The next one I got is the action sampler. And this one these are all kind of toy cameras, but this one especially feels like a toy. It feels very cheap. It's just clear plastic, you know, it looks like a toy. I think it was the cheapest one too. I think this was only maybe like $40, which is great. I like just getting like cheap, affordable cameras. This one takes 4 pictures in a grid. You can see the different lenses within about a second or maybe less. So ideally, it's great for capturing action. But it's so short that it's kind of hard to do sometimes. And a lot of times if I use this, which I haven't experimented with too much, a lot of these are like this too. It almost just feels like 4 frames of the same thing without much movement in between. It's kind of hard sometimes to get a shot with movement, but see, this is a good one, doing the golf swing, because it's a fast motion, so there's a whole lot of movement in between them. Okay, it is 1 second. 4 shots in a second. But something else cool is that you don't need to have a lot of movement in it. It's kind of cool just to see the small changes in between, you know. Nothing is frozen, you know, perfectly still when you take a picture of it. Everything's moving a little bit. So it's cool, even if you are taking just a still picture like this. You know, it just shows like there's a little bit more nuance to it. It's like each frame is just slightly different. And this one is a little bit more informative, I think, as far as like techniques, maybe than the last book. This one does not have a flash, so I've only ever used it outside. So, you know, here, so this one, I've tried to do this technique, and it didn't turn out well, but where the subject is standing still, but you're moving the camera around them. So this is cool, because the whole background is blurred. When I've done it before, the whole picture is blurred, which didn't look good. But I think maybe what you need to do is just keep the subject in frame. I think what I've done before is maybe just moving the whole camera like this or something, and just it blurs the whole thing. So maybe just like keeping it like in a circle around something. There's a roller coaster there. That's a good one to take pictures of. A lot of animal shots. This is also something I've had a good experience with. I took this out to, there's this goat farm you can go to and just kind of like hang out with the goats there nearby. I went there and I took this camera and I used it to take pictures of the goats, and they had a farm cat out there that would just hang out. And that was fun. I have a picture I like of the cat walking up to me, and I got a picture of it so you can see each frame. And he's moving fast too, so he's getting closer. And, you know, I think animals, and cats especially, are so expressive when they move. They're just very fluid. That it's nice. This one's about the photographer and the subject moving at the same time. And you can see it does get a little bit blurry, but it's not too bad. It's still like they got the framing of the person changed a lot as they moved. This is not something I've really experimented with very much, so a good reason just to go back and look through these books, because I never think too much about, especially after I just first got get these cameras, I don't think too much about learning new techniques. So it is, or just learning better ways to use a camera. I think this camera has a lot of potential, but it's something that I have not utilized very much. I think I've only developed 2 rolls before on it. Maybe even just 1, actually. No, I think 2. I don't know. But I'm usually out shooting by myself, and I don't get pictures of people too much. Not even really street photography, although I could maybe get more into that. So I've been trying to take it out more often when I'm in the middle of a roll of film here, that I take out if I'm with people, just to try and get some more shots of people moving around. Alright, the last one is the Sprocket Rocket. That's this guy. The color's kind of weird. So this is a panorama film camera. So each frame of this is, you have your 35mm film, and each one is, I guess, 70mm long. It's like two film, whatever, 2 lengths of film in one, is what I'm trying to say. And this is another one that does not have a flash, so I've only used it outside in the daylight. Again, it has long exposures you can use. I don't think I've even experimented with it at all, but here's a good example of that with the light. Has multiple exposure. And one thing that's cool about it is, I'm going to see if I can find some examples in here, is that it doesn't have just one frame in it at a time when you move all the way over to the next one. These wheels, you can just scroll through, so you can take a picture, scroll through a third or half of the way onto the next frame, and then take another picture, and that'll be exposed. So it kind of like connects all of the pictures together. I've experimented with it a little bit. I'm still not seeing any. These are all just like one shot, one image, but it seems like a cool way to do multiple exposed images in a creative way that you can't do on these other cameras. Because not only is it just like a double exposure on the same frame, but it's exposure with the frame moved over, to whatever degree, and you have like control over that. There's not like settings, it's just a manual wheel. Here's a good one with exposure, multiple exposure. And something that really drew me to this camera is that it takes the image goes all the way out to the sprockets that hold the film in place. And so when you get it developed, you can just have the sprocket holes in frame, which I really like. I think that's a fun look. I like this one. This is a nice like portrait style. Just, you know, it feels kind of like amateur in a nice way. It just seems like someone just taking a picture of their friend. This one is unfortunately kind of expensive to experiment with because you only get half the amount of pictures per roll. So, you know, I'll get like a, whatever, 36 frames in a normal camera, and then with this one, that same film is only going to give me 18. And also, to get it developed, because of the panorama format and to get the sprocket holes in, you have to pay more, at least from any film lab that I've used. So it just gets to be expensive. I'm paying an extra, you know, $10+ just to get it developed and scanned, and I'm only getting 18 versus 36 pictures out of a roll of film, so it just ends up being very expensive. You know, if I'm using like a more experimental film and I'm spending $20 on that film, and then you know, another probably $30 or so to get it developed and scanned, that's you know, maybe $50 for 18 pictures. And I think they're kind of hard to get to look good. A lot of the ones I've taken just turned out really bad in ways that I don't even know how it happened. So I'm kind of hesitant to use this. I do like the camera and I like the pictures. There's some good ones in here, but I'm hesitant to use it just because it's so costly just to experiment with it. But it is a cool camera. One that I didn't talk about because it is, I always keep this in my backpack, is Yotsuba. I keep this in my backpack because I like to bring it to work to try and read through. This is the first manga series I am reading through in Japanese, so that's my little personal project, is to just get through the whole series. And I think there's 15 volumes so far. So I carry this to work, and you know, I'll just sit at the counter, and if I have some time between customers or whatever, I'll just read through. And it's fun. I've read through this in English before, and I really like it. And it's fun just to read through in Japanese, and I have some context for it. Like, I can, you know, somewhat remember what was going on in these different scenes, and it kind of helps me figure out some words that I maybe wouldn't know. So, would recommend this series if you like manga. It's very funny. It's kind of surreal. It's kind of like slice of life. I really like it. I'm on number 7 right now out of 15. And the last time I was at Kinokuniya, I bought I believe it was the 15th volume, or whatever the latest volume was, that was only out in Japanese at the time. It hadn't been translated yet. And that felt like such a fun goal, just to be able to, I just thought, if I can read through the whole series up to that point, then it's almost like I get like I'm cheating the system. You know, I get to read the next volume earlier than I'd be able to read in English. So that was kind of my little goal. Of course, at this point, you know, I think that was a year or two ago. That volume now has been translated to English, I'm pretty sure. So I did not read through these fast enough, but I'm trying to get through them now. I'm not studying too much right now. I'm really just trying to like take a break from everything. But this is the one thing I'm trying to keep up with, is just reading through.